peace. Alright. I try to understand the little mysteries that I found. I try to get my feet on higher ground. The promises of thy word are written down in my heart. And now you're with me, Lord. No one will keep us apart.
Because of you,
I can show the world I love them. I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do. And when that burden lays heavy on your shoulder, and I'm being put to the test, he said, come ye who are heavy laden, come ye, and I will give you rest.
because of you,
I can show the world I love them. I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do. And when the problems come, bringing on a storm, Jesus' tender love keeps me safe and warm. The enemy only comes to lie, to cheat and steal, but there's nothing he can do to take us from the love of you.
because of because of
I try to understand the little mysteries that I found. I try to get my feet on higher ground. The promises of thy word are written down in my heart. And now you're with me, Lord. No one will keep us apart.
because of you,
I can show the world I love them. I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do.
because of you,
I can show the world I love
because
them.
of you,
I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do.
Good evening, and welcome. This is Pastor Errol Williams here with Men's Talk with Pastor Rob Clark and Brother Earl Lynch. And so we are excited to be here with you. Just want to give you some information just before I head over to them, just to remind you that we are on a few platforms. Please do communicate with us and chat in the chat room on YouTube, Facebook, or Zoom, whichever is your preference. So without further ado, I'm going to head over to the best place to be tonight, and that is on Men's Talk. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you guys?
Very well. Good evening and welcome, everybody.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let me start with you, brother Rob. It's been, I think it's been 3 weeks, since or even four since we've been here. How has things been for you in the last few weeks?
It's been extremely busy. Good evening, everyone online, and yourselves, Pastor Errol, Brother Errol. No, it's been
Blessings.
it's been busy. I didn't expect it to be as busy as I thought. It's busy in all aspects in terms of work, busy, new chapter, home, busy. Good, blessed. Children are growing up. I've got one who's 12 now. That's the youngest.
Yes.
The other two now, well in the 26 and 22, doing amazing. Church ministry busy, and as you know, I do the live stream media as well on top of all that, as well as church. So it's just
Mm.
been so busy. As I say, not really expected it, and but being blessed. I don't
Yes.
feel
Yes.
phased as I should do. And health is good. I might have to share with you a story a little later of my health and a challenge I had to overcome. I shared it with
Mm.
my prayer team about taking courage. But yeah, I'll leave that till later. But yeah,
Right.
everything's good. I'm thanking God, for just the
Mm.
grace and mercy being here as well.
Amen. Amen. Obviously, Earl, you haven't been busy at all. You must have been lying on the beach somewhere, right?
I wish. I haven't had a holiday yet. That doesn't come until November. So, good
Okay.
evening, everybody. God bless. No, we are actually looking forward very, very much to my holiday in November. We're going to go
Excellent.
on a
Mm.
cruise, Eastern
Oh,
Caribbean.
wonderful.
But
Wonderful.
yeah,
Whoa.
the reason why we've not done that is because our house is completely upside down at the moment.
Mm.
We are. I am finally off the dining room table. When I work from
Okay.
home, I often work on the dining room table. So I am now off the dining room table. I am now actually broadcasting from my home office. Excuse me, sorry, I
Yes.
haven't got it quite right. So I'm from the home office now, which we've had built. But all the things that were in this location are all around the house now. They're in the
Okay.
dining room. They're in the front room. So the house is upside down. So my wife and I we're battling through. But
Yes.
similar to Rob, work is very busy. I've got a job in Paris next week, and we've got a client who's
Mm.
very detail orientated and very much wanting to be in control of everything. And I think the direction that they're moving in is actually the wrong way. So I'm gonna have to tell them tomorrow. So that's another thing. And then
Yeah.
and church is good. I've just come off a couple of teaching sessions and thoroughly enjoyed that. I love teaching,
Mm. Mm.
especially in church. We did a message about Pharaoh keeping the children of Israel, the
Mm.
Hebrews,
Mm.
under subjection. So that was brilliant, and I love that. And like I said, work is going well, and socially, I've just had my son playing piano with me this evening.
Okay.
Absolutely
Excellent.
wonderful. Yeah,
Excellent.
so he's learning and he's playing. He's playing better than me right now. He really is, and he's at just top draw. And having evenings when you can be with your young ones and you can play and
Mm.
join in and
Mm.
do.
Mm.
So this is the second time this week I've played basketball with him and the rest of my friends on Monday, and then here we are Wednesday, and we're playing and making
Mm.
music together, which is fantastic. So I'm in
Amen.
chocolate heaven right now. It's really good.
Mhm.
Excellent. Well, Brother Earl, why don't you just open up in prayer for us tonight
Sure,
and
sure.
invite the presence of the Lord with us? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Dear Lord, our Heavenly Father God, we do thank you for this day. We thank you for enabling us to come to the evening and to be able to engage with each other on this broadcast. Lord, we pray that everyone who is listening may partake and may enjoy what you have to say, Lord. I pray that you may use Pastor Errol, Brother Rob, and myself to be oracles for you, to speak on your behalf, Lord, and to say the things that you would want your people to hear. We invite your presence among us, Lord. We ask you to take control of the airways, take control of every aspect of this broadcast, so that when it is received by the congregation, they may take it, they may run with it, and they may enjoy it and live a better life in accordance with your will. Bless us now as we go forward, as we ask it all in your mighty and precious name. Amen.
Amen.
You've lost your volume, Errol. Turn your volume back on.
Yeah, I know, I
There you
know.
go.
I always do that. I think we always make that mistake in it, but Rob.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Classic
Yes.
mistake.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna welcome. Is it Pat God, Clive Williams, and Deacon Stanley
Oh,
Golding,
good.
Shirley Golding, Claudia B. Welcome. Don't forget, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat room. And I answer the easy one, and Brother Earl and Brother Rob, they answer the easier one. Um, nice to see you guys. Looking forward to tonight's studies, as said here. Yahweh be magnified. Greetings, Sister Winty. And don't forget, nice to see you as well. Nice to see you guys. Blessings to you all. Well, one of the things that we often, Pastor Catherine Moraine, welcome to you. And thank you so much. One of the things that, and I also want to say a big thank you as well to Brother Thomas Tullock as well, who is with us. And we do appreciate the man of God to be with us tonight. Well, one of the things that we often discuss, brother, let me start with you, Brother Earl, is current news. Have you got any current
Okay.
news that's affecting men anywhere that we could learn from? Then we go to Rob.
I think one of the current pieces of news which I heard this week, which was interesting, was the early release scheme that Labour have put
Okay.
into place, which took
Okay.
place yesterday. Apparently, what we've got is overpopulated prison population. I believe
Right.
the number is actually 88,521 people are in prison, and our prison is full. Prison is just full.
88,000
So
number, 88,000.
88,521, yeah. That's the number of people that
Wow.
were in the prison population. So therefore, some of the wardens and so on were saying, look, the prisons are literally full. Every cell was maximum capacity. And it means that if we do have some serious crimes that take place outside of the inside the community now, that there's nowhere to put people. Now, the reason why this is particularly important, because the government, the Keir Starmer and his government, wanted to bring the prison population down as quickly as possible, and he's given an early release scheme. So 1,700 people were released yesterday back into their communities. Some of them have no homes to go to. Some of them can't go back to their previous places of residence because some of them were locked up for domestic violence. And, they can't just go back to their wives and children if they've not been properly rehabilitated. The trust is very low. Some have gone back and have vowed never to go back again. One person, as soon as he came out, was rearrested and went straight back
Oh,
into
no.
a prison cell again. So, but it's a drastic move. But if Keir Starmer had to make that move, you can imagine things must be really bad. And if you remember the situation we had just over a couple of weeks ago where people were rioting and trying to go to hotels and burn out the migrants that were located in there. If you've got a situation like that, where do you put the people who get arrested? Because I know that the government were bringing them to court very quickly and trying to get them into prison. So where would they go? So if we're not careful, if we don't get this right, people will run riot in the streets, and there's nowhere to put them. There's nowhere to put them. So the prisons are being cleared out of people who have done 40% of their sentence or more, and I think he's just trying to create a space where if things do kick off, you can still get arrested, and there's going to be a place for you where prison service isn't being too overrun. So that was the thing that I picked up this week. I thought it was fascinating. I can imagine those who are, even mildly not guilty, if you wish, or those they must think that all this Christmases have come in one go. If you're on the early release scheme and you've actually managed to get out of prison early, I think that's a great idea. In that, for those who deserve to come out and are definitely rehabilitated, it must be a really good feeling for them right now.
Mm. Yeah,
I can also
know,
imagine that. Yeah,
yes. No,
I
that's
can also
a
imagine
really,
though if you weren't supposed to come out, you're thinking,
yeah.
"Wow, I am so lucky right now." But there you
Yeah,
go.
and I wanted to pose a question to you on that, Rob, because we're talking about 88,521 prisoners.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is huge, and the large majority of that, I'm not so sure what the statistics are. Maybe Brother Errol could tell us what proportion of that is men. We do know that the majority of
Yeah.
that is men,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this has a huge impact on family, doesn't it?
yeah, it does.
Absolutely, and just that number though, I think I heard that prisons are 99% full. Yeah, and so
Mm,
it makes you wonder what the impact is in terms of the
yes.
80 odd thousand. Number one, as he said, as Earl had already said, but also 88. And if let's guess, because I don't know, if 90% of that are male, what's the
Mm,
impact? Because they may have left a family before they went in, coming
mm,
back to a family. Some will come back to a broken relationship because depending on how long they were there,
mm,
there'll be all
mm,
different dynamics going on, and it's no surprise that at least one has managed to find themselves back in prison again,
mm,
or be
mm,
arrested.
Yeah, yeah,
Because ultimately prisons are there for correction, aren't they? But
mm,
yeah,
often it's not used for that. So I think it has a major impact in so many ways. And as you say, if prisons do get full, then there's a chance that certain crimes will be overlooked because they just don't have the
mm,
space. And
mm,
I'm not saying it is, but it just felt a bit more than a coincidence. The immigration riots that we had, seemed to happen just at that time, where people felt maybe they could get away with it. But yet we're hearing some long sentences for some people, like up to 9 years. I heard a
is
few
it?
days ago.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so as
Okay.
much as they're releasing 80 odd thousand, there's a few hundred at least from
no, no,
the
no,
riots.
no. 1,700, 1,700 have been
1700.
released.
1,700.
Really.
I think the
Wow.
figure
Yeah,
was
it,
1,750, isn't it?
yeah,
I
yeah,
There
think
you
what that's
go.
what they fixed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
just of that 80, yeah,
go
that
on.
88,521, 96% of those are male.
There you
Only
go. There
4%
you
of them,
go.
96%.
96% are
96.
male.
Wow.
4% are
That
female.
is that
So
That
that
was
kind of
is
gives you an
far away.
idea.
yeah.
So if you
And
take
then and
96% of that 1,750,
yeah, and that impacts, Brother Earl, on what we talked about some time before on fatherlessness and the impact of
yes, yes,
fatherlessness
yes,
in
yes,
society. And the other thing that I wanted to pick up on as well is it's my understanding that black people make up around 4%. And what
I
would
think,
be interesting to know is that how much of that 88% is black men and
yeah,
in
yeah,
prison, and that's probably larger than the percentage of men that's
yeah.
black men that's in the country.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, the prison population is overpopulated with people from ethnic minorities. We
Mm,
probably make up around, and this is all people of color, make up
yeah.
around 11 to 13% of the population, and I'm pretty sure that in the prison population you got more than that. I'll see if I can
Yes.
find the
Yeah.
statistic for you.
Mm.
It would
What
be
percentage of
useful
the
to know, because I think that it just goes to show what's happening, because there is the issue about black men being misrepresented within the system, where they're getting
yeah,
more sentence than their white counterpart, for the
yeah,
same crime, or even sometimes, lesser crimes. White people are getting away, with lesser sentence, and there are those arguments that's going on. But what I wanted to look at, Brother Rob, was the fact that 96% of the prison population are men, and there are some of those men that are there on very long sentences as well. So it's not like they're
yeah,
coming out, in the next 2 or 3 years. Some are there for life,
yeah,
and so on, and the impact on women, the impact on children, the impact in society, the impact
Mm.
on the financial structure is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. I
Look,
was watching a drama based in Nottingham, funny enough, and it
Mm,
just showed you tiny snippets of that kind of thing, and it's a difficult one really because if you commit a crime, you need to pay. But I
yes,
think for
absolutely.
me,
Absolutely.
there's a more fundamental issue, which was one of my topics I'll raise after about knife crime, really. But it's what drives people to do what they do,
Mm,
and the signs in society suggest it's not going to get any better because there's
mm,
no
mm,
alternative. People
mm,
will say, and so they have to result in what the and then if even if they are got, it's just the mental health impacts, because of the situation they're in, which then leads to a crime. So it's such a deep and complex thing. I mean,
mm,
I think we naturally look at people in prison and go, that it's their fault they're locked up, and majority
mm,
it is. But what I'm saying is, I think the lack of education, because of
mm,
poverty and so many
yeah.
things, especially in the black community, where there's not many affluent,
mm,
families, black families. Hence,
mm,
why a lot from that community often find themselves in trouble and are then
mm,
Mm,
stereotyped, treated unfairly in the legal system
yeah.
because they have a
Mm,
label for themselves, a certain group
mm,
will. So it's so complex. And for me, Pastor Errol, it's like, how do you change that? How
mm,
when
mm,
you think about all of that, where do you even go
mm,
about looking to change all that?
mm.
Really? But yeah, it's so difficult.
Well, I'm gonna ask you both I think it's a million-pound question, and I want you to assume that the prime minister's call you both in to his office
Mm, mm,
to ask you what is the answer to
mm,
stopping men, 96%
yeah.
of men, from
mm.
crime. How do we solve this problem? I mean, maybe that's a million-pound question. Now, you, me,
Well,
brother. Let me start with you. I
oh,
mean, I just want one answer from you, and I don't want a book. The prime minister has called you in. This is a major, major problem. 88,500 in prison. It's overpopulated. Is your advice going to be build more prisons and throw them in? Whatever. What is the answer to all of this?
It's a tough question, and I don't think I've got a complete answer that would
Mm,
be able to be condensed into 3 minutes because it's a combination of things like education. It's a combination of reducing the amount of substance abuse that they might be doing. Because
mm,
when you put a combination of drugs, alcohol, and various things, the lifestyle, and
mm,
not holding down a job, poverty, being ignorant. When you put a lot of those
mm,
things into the equation, they lead you to be in a disadvantaged situation straight
mm,
away. But I put a lot of it down to education. The lack of knowledge, our people suffer. And you know what? We only make up 4% of the prison population. 81% of the prison population is white. 9.3% is from the Asian population. 2.9 is mixed.
okay,
So
okay,
we're only a small percentage as black men specifically.
okay,
Our Asian
okay,
cousins, there's more of them, but I think we're
okay.
still overrepresented, and I think half of it's down to education.
Well, I think that's a very powerful point, because we could, if the prime minister was to say, well, look, we need to have some education programs rolled out. One might say, Brother Rob, we need to start in the school, and make
mm,
sure there's education in the school, education in the home, education all around,
mm,
because my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. And
mm.
it's a very, very powerful point. But what would your answer be to that question, Brother Rob?
My answer is that, firstly, it's bigger than the government.
Right.
But
Mm.
to answer your question in terms if the
Mm.
government approach, well, they have over the years. Not necessarily, me individually, but when I was chair and part of Black Boys Can, for example,
Yes.
which I
Yes.
think all of
Yes.
us are familiar with, we went down to the Houses of Parliament
Mm-hmm.
and still today network. And in fact, I know there was individuals who were in 10 Downing Street this week regarding the
Mm.
knife crime issue. Reverend Les Isaacs was called for a radio interview. Bishop Lenford Rowe of Church of God of Prophecy, yeah,
Mm.
was around that table at 10 Downing Street, apparently, discussing with, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer,
Okay.
the
Okay.
strategy. Yeah. So my answer is it's a society issue. And as
Mm.
Brother Earl alluded, it's complex. There's culture. It's about education. But
Yeah.
the people who are involved to resolve it are the parents as well as the
Mm.
individuals, the young people, the government, the families, wider
Mm.
families, the communities, and churches.
Mm.
But when I name all of those groups, which I just did, they're still individuals,
Yeah.
Mm.
who
Yeah.
happen to have
Mm.
a family,
Yeah.
Mm.
part of the
Yeah.
government, part of the community, part of the church.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's about,
Mm.
for me, about working together, having the right motives. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, because of where we are, and
Mm.
people doing things for themselves, it makes it very difficult. And so you have this
Yes.
wide gap of rich and poor, and so people who are poor are basically trying to survive. Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
them, not all of them, they're on survival, and so they take that risk. There's some who don't need to because they're not on survival. It's a bit of a rush for them, or they see it as a whatever. So it's not just one. It's so complex. So
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
The more you
Yeah.
can get around
Can,
the
Yeah.
table, the better the impact.
Yeah. But
I like what you said
just
there,
coming to you,
Rob.
there, Brother Earl. I'm going to come to
Yeah.
you, Brother Earl, on that one, just to say we can wrap up this and go to another point, because I think the
Okay.
point that you're making there, Brother Rob, is a very powerful one, because I think it starts with the family. It really does
Mm,
start with the family. And because if you've got a dysfunctional family, you've got fathers who are not there,
mm,
mothers who are struggling, you know what I mean?
mm,
And because the majority, this is something that is interesting, the majority of men in prison are from fatherless homes. This
right.
is what we have, this is what statistics have shown in a lot of cases. And it's
Mm,
interesting, brother Earl, that you mentioned that 81% were from the white population, which I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of, and that's huge. That's huge. Go ahead, brother
It
Rob.
is. It
Brother
is.
Earl, sorry. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was going to say is, I was just thinking about it. I've said education, but I know a couple of guys in prison who are black, and they're well educated, um, and they've got good church backgrounds.
Mm.
One of them's got a particularly good church background, but it was a desperate situation that he was in.
mm,
And because of that desperate situation, he committed a crime, a huge
Mm.
crime, and is
mm,
serving time for it now.
Mm.
And the other one is the same. So it is very complex. It's not just
Mm.
if your
Mm.
fathers are not there, because admittedly, this guy he didn't grow up with his father,
Mm.
the
mm,
one I'm thinking of. But he had a difficult family situation. But the situation, sometimes we find ourselves in situation, and there. But for the grace of God, go you and I. I
yeah,
Mm.
could
yeah.
get so
Mm.
desperate that I decide to do something that's marginally illegal, and if I get away with it, I might do it again and
Mm.
again until I get caught. So
Mm,
I know there's people out there who are taking chances right now. They're just
Mm.
taking chances right now, hoping to goodness that they don't get caught. Look at
They
those
get
who
away with it,
who
yes.
who, who grow marijuana in their or ganja in their attic with the roof, inside the roof space with all the lights on. The police are detecting that, but they'll do it and they'll
Mm.
sell and
mm,
they'll make money and hope that they don't get caught. But if they do get caught, where are they going to go? They're part of this
Mm. Mm.
very
Mm.
culture and population that we're talking about. They're educated,
mm,
they got family, they got friends. Some of them may even come to church, but
mm,
Mm.
there's a little bit of greed in there. There's desperation. They don't want to necessarily work. They
Mm.
want the easy money, and anything that gets them, to pay their bills and live like a king. Essentially, they'll try it. You know,
Yeah.
people will do it.
I'm going to come to the chat rooms in a moment because there are some powerful points that's been raised. I'm going to come to that. And I think,
Sure.
I think when I think about education, though, I'm not just thinking about getting your doctorate and so on, which is a part of it, but also education in morality, spirituality. Are
Yeah,
you with
yeah,
me?
yeah,
And
yeah,
for example, basic stuff like having respect for one another and
Yeah.
people's property, that type of thing. And when I talk about, the family, it starts really in the home. And because the school is not going to teach the children certain things. And so the families have a responsibility to teach them, respect and so on, things like that. And I think as well, the church has a role to play. The government has a role to play, as we've mentioned. But just before I go to the chat room, was there any news item Thanks for that raising that, brother. I think that one is huge. The point that you've raised, and it does affect men greatly. Over to you, Rob. Anything that you see that's
Yeah, well,
affecting men?
yeah, good. Well, I say good. So I did mention the knife crime, and I've kind of mentioned it really in my response of the initiative Keir Starmer wants to look into. So I'll be interested in other people's thought about how we're going to get or reduce knife crime. I think it was just the other week there was an amnesty on ninja swords. Right, people are going out with these ninja swords and stuff like that. And it's not the first time I'm hearing about knife amnesty. And I listen to what's happening, and I get why they're doing it, but I just don't see any positive impact. It just feels like knife crime is on the increase rather than the
The
decrease.
decrease,
And then
yes.
at the same time, yes, we were all young, and where I grew up in Wolverhampton, yeah, it wasn't like an innocent place. Don't get me wrong, but it just didn't appear to be as evil as I say in terms of the type of crime that we're now hearing, and it seems to be common. So it just makes me think, I'm just one individual with millions in the UK trying to make a little difference. It is about working together, but just the hearing on the news that Keir Starmer's forming a committee, if you like, and he's trying to work with other people. I'm thinking, what's he going to do different that other governments have tried to do? Or is it now a political ploy, to get some star points? Don't know. But I'm really concerned. Are we hearing now people are just using a knife to take somebody's life? It's not new. It's been going on for years, but it just seems on the increase. And I just can't get to understand. And it appears to be younger people generally, not just younger people, who are doing this. And it's almost like they've become so desensitized. What's happening for them to become? What can we do? Even the church can do, and it's not everybody in the church can make a difference, because it takes a certain type of individual to be able to confront and challenge, and that's what you need to do with individuals. But yeah, so that hearing that on the news Monday, because it was Monday that they had the kind of the first wave, with, as I say, Giselle and a few other people. Is like, what can be really done to really, and at the same time, you're hearing the councils are getting rid of community centres and all these things that will help to take youth off the streets. It's like pardon the pun, it's a double-edged sword. They want to try and reduce crime, but yet they're taking away the very much projects and funding that will help them. So yeah, I just find it very interesting, really.
Yes. Let me just add to that, because I'm coming from the background of some of these young people, and what took me off the street was opportunity. You see, a lot of young people are very bored. They don't have
yeah,
opportunities. They are very skilled and very talented. Some of them are
That's
even
right.
better football players than some of the guys that are in the Premier League, but they don't get the opportunity. So when you
Yeah.
take away opportunities, they have
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
else to turn to. So they turn to what that's easy to turn to. So
Mm.
what tends to happen is that, you know, if we gave opportunities to a lot of young people who are doing these things, you would be amazed at how they would switch and change. We have seen that. I've
Mm.
seen that
Yeah.
with the project that I was involved in Stonebridge,
Mm.
and a lot of young people. Let me say this: they were playing football, they were playing
Mm.
basketball, they were playing cricket, they were playing
Mm.
squash, they were playing badminton. Are you with me? They were playing netball. Women were also playing basketball. They were doing all these different sports, and it was occupying their time and their mind, and they didn't have time to go and to commit crime. When
Mm.
you take that all away, and then
Yep.
say you want to help, you don't really want to help.
Mm.
You really want to
No.
destroy, but you're just talking about it. You see, the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, Brother Rob, if you look at the Premiership, I mean, this is just basic logic, Brother Rob, Brother Earl. If you really want to produce a very good team in the Premiership, it's very easy. Just plug money into it. Just
Mm.
plug money into it. Just buy better players, and you'd be amazed how you'd be able to put one of the best team together. Almost every team in the Premiership can also
Mm.
win matches. You win because
Mm.
they're
Yeah.
competing at the level because of money. If you don't put money into young people's events and talents and ability, classic example. A lot of these young people could be preparing for the Olympics, could be
Mm.
preparing
Yeah.
for different things. You with me? So if you take the money away and then say you're gonna sit down and have a talk, well, you're not really talking to me because I'm not listening to that, because you got to
Mm.
put money into young people if you want to really get them off the streets.
Right.
I don't know if there's any thoughts you had, Rob, around what Brother Rob has raised, Brother Earl.
I think you mentioned a really interesting point there about opportunity. You know, because we've come from a similar background in that you
Mm,
had the bus project and we had temple training services, and that offered opportunities that we wouldn't usually get. And when I look at the Olympic athletes, particularly, many of them were given
mm,
opportunities to do stuff that they enjoyed, had a passion, and were probably a little bit skilled about. But somebody gave them a break. Somebody said, "Oh, why don't you try doing this? I can put you in
mm,
contact with somebody." And it takes this channel which they begin to thrive in. And if they're good at
Mm.
it and they're passionate and they're dedicated, they can make it. But a lot of people don't get those opportunities. We don't get people who are prepared to invest in others. And consequently, if
mm,
nobody's prepared to invest in you, you feel that like you're not worth it. And just going back to the
mm,
knife crime situation that Rob mentioned, a lot of the kids, particularly, why are they carrying knives? They're carrying knives because they perceive that other kids have got knives and therefore they need to protect themselves. So
mm,
the reason I carry a knife is because, just in case somebody who's got a knife stops me, I want to be able to defend myself. That's the argument that's used. And if ever there is a argument between any two people, out come the blades. It's the
mm,
weapon of choice right now. Thank God that we haven't got the guns on the street, because there'd be even more bloodshed
Mm.
then. But
Mm.
just going back to your point earlier, when they do have these knife amnesties, hundreds of knives are bought in.
Mm.
Hundreds,
Mm. Mm.
hundreds are bought in, but
Mm.
still, it's just not making a dent
No.
really on the
mm,
number of knives in people's possession.
Mm.
There's
mm,
thousands of weapons out there. I would hate to think what the real number is, but
Mm.
I think God's just keeping a lid on all of this and not letting it
mm,
explode beyond
mm,
our means. But you know what? If the country ever got desperate, don't be surprised if you see more knives, more guns, more weapons come out, because
mm,
Mm.
it could be like something that's bubbling up, just waiting to pop.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
mm,
let's just pray, that we just keep a lid on all of this and that
mm.
nothing goes too awry. But there you go.
Yeah, and,
That's
Yeah.
and
just a
I,
few
as I
thoughts.
say, if we don't give opportunities to young people, it's
Yeah,
not gonna work. And you see, I used to be
very
a
true.
youth leader in Wembley, and the age group of the youth at the time was 12 to 35. I had 108 youth in the
Mm.
church that I was leading. And one of the things I did was I had a lot of activities going on. I had a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities for young people to be engaged in, whether it was a sponsored walk, a concert, a youth dinner, quizzes that we had, leading the services, the preaching, singing. And so there's lots of things going on. So young people are involved. Young people, if the opportunity is given to them, will detract them from other criminal activities. Not everyone, but a large majority, and so on. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say on that, Rob. We can see the impact of that with young people. They're going into prison. In fact, what was being said is that when one killing takes place, it's generally at least 4 to 6 youth that are involved in that one incident.
Yeah, yeah,
Are you with me?
Wow.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. No, and then guess what? The family of the victim is impacted, and that
Mhm.
leaves a scar. Sometimes vengeance. It's a never-ending
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thing really. So for me, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and all we're seeing is communities, societies growing up very angry, bitter.
Mhm.
And then it just takes someone to say the wrong thing, and
Mhm.
there you go. There's another crime. Mental
Yeah.
health impact.
Mhm.
It's huge. So for me, I just pray, and it sounds, because I feel it's impossible as human beings to address it.
Mm.
I really do, because I don't disagree opportunities and stuff. Some of it's not
Mm.
even about opportunity, because some
Mm.
people, as I say, have got the opportunity and still commit crime, because
Yes. Yes.
their
Yes.
attitude, their lack of moral um, understanding, or whatever you
Mm.
want to call it. So for me, that's just part of it. For me, it's so
Mm.
complex. It needs something divine, but it does need us to take action.
Mm.
But it just doesn't feel like it's making any great significance right now. And it's one
Mm.
of those things, isn't it? Because if you don't hear of a crime, then you can class it as success. It's only when you hear of it you feel like the whole thing's failed. But it's hard to
Yes.
measure, what's really happening.
But it's
Yeah.
interesting because one of the things that I saw in the project, and Brother Earl knows the project very well, is that we provided a lot of opportunities in different areas, and we attracted hundreds of people into it. Not everybody, but hundreds of
Mm,
people came out of crime.
Mm.
mm,
You with me? They came out
mm,
of crime because the opportunity was supported by money.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you with me? And so what
Mm,
happened is, you had people who were changing their lives in terms of, because they were getting better into sports, or they were getting better
mm,
into certain business. We gave people business opportunities. We gave them free
Mm.
rent. You know,
mm,
and one particular guy and a group of guys took their business. I gave them a business space, Brother Earl, business space where they were able to run their business, and eventually took that business onto the high street
mm,
Yeah.
selling mobile
Yeah. Yeah.
phones.
Take it.
And what I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about here is, you know, people are looking for opportunity. You're absolutely right, Brother Robbie. Not everybody is going to take it. But you
mm,
know
mm,
what? A lot of people are in crime because they have no opportunities. And you're right about the fact that we used to have all these youth centers, and Margaret Thatcher
mm,
took them all away.
mm,
You know,
mm,
and I tell you
mm.
what the youth centers did where I was. It took the youth off the street.
That's right. Mm,
One of the,
It
mm,
did. You're
and so on.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. But let me go to
Yeah.
some of the there's a question that was asked by Jenny, was what's the difference between lonely and I would imagine
Loneliness.
loneliness. Yeah, what's the difference between lonely
Lonely
and I would
and
say
loneliness.
loneliness? I think that's
Lo-
probably the question that she's
Loneliness.
raised. Mm.
I don't
loneliness.
know.
Yeah.
And
What
I
is?
think
Are
maybe
you
maybe I
able
could
it's
to?
maybe I could put it this way. You could be you could what's the word I'm looking at? You could be alone, but not
Mm.
lonely. Does that make sense? So you might live alone. I'm not so sure if the question is even correct.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
need
Be-
clarity on that because there
yeah.
is something
yeah,
called loneliness. I wonder if Jenny could come on and just clarify her question.
yeah, and I
I
just
think.
put up. She also mentioned here when God created Adam, He said man shouldn't be alone. What's the difference
Yeah.
between
It is
loneliness?
loneliness. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Well,
Mm.
what I would say, Jen, the way I understand it is that a person could be alone. In other words, they live by themselves. They live alone. There's nobody else living with them. But doesn't necessarily mean they are lonely, but
Yes,
they are
correct.
alone. Lonely means that you are going through a particular emotion. You're going through a particular challenge. You don't want to be by yourself, let's say, and etc.
Yeah.
But there are lots of people who are on their own. They're alone, but they are very, very happy. They're not
Mm,
lonely whatsoever. And I think when God said it's not good for man to be alone, because being alone, he's not going to be productive. He's not going to be fruitful. And that may be the
mm,
best
Yeah.
I can say. Unless you want to come back and on the point with
mm.
us, that would be
Mm.
great. A question here from Dwayne. Let me put that one up. Is
Oh, are you finished with that one? Okay.
go ahead if you wanted to add to that. Go ahead. Go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah, I was just going to say because lonely and loneliness are two different things, I think, and it's
Yeah.
similar to what you just said. For instance, my wife and I, we live in the same house. My wife and I, we share the same office in Kings Winford. Um, but there's many times during the day when she's doing counseling and I'm doing coaching, and we don't see each other all day, practically all day, only
Mm,
till we get back into the house and we share a meal and go to bed. So there's so in our individual roles, we can be somewhat uh, on our own,
mm,
independent, not necessarily lonely, but we operate independently on our own.
mm,
But I know, for instance, there are times when I want to be alone. So, for instance, I've started to pick up the piano again now, and when I'm playing, I don't want any disturbance. I don't want
yeah.
I don't want it to be looking over my shoulder. I want to be able to make mistakes, and it's not until I want to invite her in that I want somebody to keep companionship and share some feedback with what they're hearing. So there are times when you want to be alone, and I think that's perfectly normal. But loneliness,
Mm,
as you've described very, very well, is a
mm,
feeling. It's a feeling of loss. It's a feeling that hurts. Your heart hurts when you're lonely, when you want somebody. Just like Adam, God could see when he
mm,
was in the Garden of Eden that the animals, he could name all the animals and he could see all the animals had their companions, male and female,
mm,
but he himself had no companion. God saw that and said, boy, the boy needs some help. He's lonely. Let me give him a help meet, not a helpmate, a
mm,
help meet
mm,
to fill the void that he didn't have,
Mm.
the bits of his life that he couldn't capture and do by himself. So there's three people in his marriage. There's God, there's his wife Eve, and there's Adam. But Eve fulfills a part of Adam that he couldn't meet for himself.
mm,
That's what a
mm,
help meet does. And when we're lonely, we don't have that. We don't have that counterbalance to who we are. And it,
mm,
it, it means that we're not complete. And even with God in our lives, just like Adam, we are not complete. And that loneliness leaves a hole in your heart and it doesn't feel
mm.
good.
Yeah,
Really
it
doesn't
certainly
feel good.
doesn't. It's an
Yeah.
this emotional feeling is
Mm,
not good.
mm,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to answer that question, Brother Rob. What would you
mm.
say? Education, is it a black issue or a Caribbean culture issue? I like the
I'm
question,
not
but I'm
sure.
not so sure.
Yeah, so good evening, Brother Dwayne. I'm not sure why it's an or question. It's an and it's bigger than that. I think education is much bigger than Black and Caribbean
Mm,
culture. It's about all cultures. Yeah, I think I know where you're going with the question, but it's not an or. It's not an
Mm,
or question for me.
Yeah.
Because black, I have this discussion even amongst black groups. What does that
mm,
mean? To maybe to somebody who's not black, but just because we're black doesn't necessarily mean we're all one. You
mm,
know, because you see it all over the world on the news. You know, black people fight amongst themselves. So,
mm,
it's not as straightforward. Is it a black or Caribbean?
mm,
And
mm,
Caribbeans, even amongst the Caribbeans, you can have small islands, right? Right? And all of this going on. So don't assume because you're black or you're from the Caribbean, everybody's united. So my
So
answer
true.
is education is about every color, every culture. Making people
mm,
aware, and the more you do. And funny enough, I've become a culture lead in my department at work. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And it's not necessarily focusing on my blackness or fighting a campaign, which often it is, but on a wider scale. But it's about letting people know, everybody in the room, where are you from? What's your background? And it was an amazing conversation. Maybe
mm,
there's about 15 or 20 in the room just to go around, you know. And it was quite interesting actually, because those who were white English almost sounded apologetic about it. It's like, oh, I'm boring. I'm English. I'm what? And I'm thinking, why is that boring? What made you say that?
mm,
Where there was another white person, Irish, another white person, Algerian. I think when we start to be more aware and understanding, I think we start to unpack and address what we're calling color issues. It's there.
mm,
Racism's there. Prejudice is there. But I think the more, and can I say, Pastor Errol, I was watching Donald Trump and Kamala Harris debate, and there's a snippet. I encourage everyone to watch this, because I follow it because I like watching debates.
mm,
But there was a snippet which was absolutely beautiful to hear Kamala Harris address Donald Trump's racial slander. How America can get away with some racial slander, I don't know. But he's been provoking Kamala Harris on their camp about, 1 minute she's not black, next minute she's black,
Yeah.
next minute she's Indian, and so on. So they asked the question to Donald Trump. He said, I'm not bothered if she's black or whatever, I'll treat her the same. But the way she answered the question, and to paraphrase, she was going, here's a man, from his younger days, wouldn't even rent out his property to black people. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, strike one. you know,
mm,
here's the man who wrote a piece in the paper to execute five
Yep.
what he thought were guilty
Yeah.
black men, you know. And she
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
people are getting sick and tired of this racial division, you know,
mm,
and somebody in that position, should really handle himself. The way she did it with such humility, she could have easily,
mm,
Yeah.
done the typical, I'm going to call Eddie Murphy kind of thing, but she didn't, and the way she articulated and everything was absolutely. For me,
mm.
especially on that particular debate, he couldn't answer anything after that. He just muttered to
Okay.
himself. He felt
Yeah. Yeah.
shame. So education is
Mm.
all of that. Mm.
But let me, Brother Earl, I think Brother Dwayne also went on to say it's following on the point of black
Ah,
people struggling in school. Here is the thing,
Right.
though, with culture. If you look at
Yeah.
certain cultures like Chinese culture,
Yeah. Yeah.
Asian culture, Jewish
Nigerian culture.
culture, and so on,
Go on.
they have certain inbred
Yeah.
cultural educational principles that they seem to
Yeah.
stick to,
that's
whereas
right.
black people may be perceived as not having that. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Got to be careful here because one, I think black people generally do value education greatly. They
Mm,
really do value education greatly. Our parents do, our children. I think my
mm,
children and their age group certainly value education. We all know the value of it. But look, the lights go on for black children, particularly black boys, later than they do for black girls.
Okay.
You look at your black girls at age 11, they know what their wedding dress is going to look like. They know where they're going to get married. They know who their bridesmaids are going to be. They know what kind of house they're going to live in, what kind of career they're going to have. They know where they're going to live,
Mm.
and they've kind of worked it all out. The black boys, they're still pushing girls around the playground and going, "Oh, you dirty rat, you dirty rat," and
Mm.
still haven't matured enough. And often the educational system over here, even though we've all started from the same um, platform, if you wish, the same starting point, black boys, when they reach teenage years, they're looking to try and establish themselves. They're trying to learn where the boundaries are, and they're usually a bit bigger than some of their white counterparts, and they seem more intimidating. They want to be a bit more loud. They're a bit more vocal. They're a bit more animated, and
Mm.
those can seem as threats to people who are educating them. And therefore, if this person looks like a troublemaker, guess how I'm going to treat them? Like a
Mm.
troublemaker. Before you know
Mm.
it,
Mm.
they're into detention. Detention could lead to dismissals and so on and so forth. And before you know it, they've got a stain against their character. And, just carry that same model on. And before you know it, prison
Mm.
at a very
Mm.
early age,
Mm.
knife crime, all the things that we spoke about earlier. So, unless you keep a tight rein on some of the boys, particularly, they end up easily outside of education. But it's not to say that they're dumb. I just think the lights
Mm.
go on later. The ability to pick up and understand, hey, you know what? If I don't knuckle down and do something with my life, I'm not going to be able to bring up children. I'm not going to be able to support my family. I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. I think the attention to detail around those things comes much later. And for some people, they will try and find an easy route to get money and not necessarily have to go through that rigmarole.
Mm.
And
Mm.
therefore it's not a surprise to know that they'll build a ganja farm in the loft and sell whatever they can, make a little money
Mm.
on the side, and then they can live and look as if they are holding down a good job, but not necessarily legally,
Mm.
and they don't
Mm.
mind doing that. But the lights go on later, and I think when children come along, that's when
Mm.
reality starts to hit.
Okay.
It really
Yeah.
does. I think if you look at Nigerians, oh my God, completely. That you will either be a doctor, a teacher, engineer. They tell you what you're going to be, and that's a culture where you get told from the time you come out of the womb that you're going to have to study and do something. And to a
Mm.
certain
Mm.
extent, it works. It works.
Mm.
You're conditioned by your environment, and you're conditioned by
Mm.
your parents. And if you don't do well, you will be chastised. There's no question about it.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
maybe in Caribbean circles now we don't push it so hard, and therefore we get away with it. That was the answer I was looking for, Brother Earl. Thank you. Winty.
Well, that was going back to
All right,
the
say no more.
lonely,
Yeah.
the lonely, and the
Oh,
loneliness,
okay.
and yeah, and
Loneliness.
I think that you're right, and I think Nelson Mandela himself made the point about the importance of education, and
Seriously, yeah.
it's truly vital, and I think was one of the points coming out. Let me just jump on to something else. We were talking some weeks back in reference to some of the things that are affecting men in the UK. There were around a list of 10 things, but I just wanted to touch briefly. We've spent time speaking about this one before, brother Rob. Mental health challenges among men, and this is really truly a major thing that's affecting men, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, daily.
Daily,
But you
indeed.
know what? I think reflecting on, since we've been involved with this, I've been purposely leading conversations to open up about mental health, stress, anxiety,
Right, right.
depression. And I think, I can remember when we started this, we were talking about men and the emotions and all that. But you know what? I'm actually seeing more men. It's not just what we do. I
Yes,
think
yes.
in terms of what I'm seeing generally about mental health awareness, it's making a difference. It's making a difference. I
Mm,
think conversations are changing. Men generally still don't open up as much as women. I think that's the way we are wired up. But I do see those, what do they call it, roots, where men are starting to open up a bit more,
mm,
which is good. There is so much more work to be done in terms of church and stuff. I purposely try and open up about my health, as well, because sometimes as leaders we can give the impression, we're some kind of, we rule with an iron
mm,
fist and have no
mm,
emotions, and stuff, and that doesn't help when people want to come and share and discuss things.
mm,
But at the same time, if you look at society in terms of the economy, opportunities, as we mentioned, it's also a recipe for more and more individuals and men who have the concept of being the man of the household, and relationships. It's I've got friends, colleagues that are dealing with all types of relationship issues, financial issues, health issues, and as much as they're opening up, some people, especially if they have no faith,
mm,
as we do, are going to
mm.
struggle. And
Yes,
and
indeed.
I really feel it for those who have no faith, like us, like me,
Yes,
because
yes.
I know that, despite what the doctor says or the nurses say, there's an element of, what, my God will deliver me. He may not even
Yes, yes.
cure me of whatever it is that somebody says I've got, but my faith helps my mental health to deal with every
Mm,
situation. That doesn't come
mm,
easy. Do I still worry? Yes, I do. Do I still get anxious? Yes, I do, but not to the state,
mm,
of what it could be without my faith.
mm.
Um, so for me, it's just really continuing to encourage, share, and I see the signs of it in my world. I'm not saying it's all resolved, because it's not, but where I can make a difference is what I'm saying. I'm
Yes,
trying to do
yes,
my little bit,
yes.
but there's
Absolutely.
so much work to be done. Mm.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I was just noticing, Brother Earl, if I take the first letter of each of these words, it's kind of sad, isn't it? That these these three dangerous thing. I
Stress,
mean,
anxiety, and
stress,
depression.
anxiety, and I know we could talk about and say there are different things that's calling stress, anxiety, and depression or disorder. And there is
Yeah,
a thing called SAD as well, seasonal. I think it's called seasonal affective
this
disorder.
effectiveness.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Mm.
affecting black men as well. But I mean, if you were to give any man out there, men you deal with, a particular antidote, let's say something to think about as to how to deal with it, is what would you offer, or what have you offered?
for stress, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah, well, this
Man,
mental health challenges,
yeah,
because I think someone said to me recently, all of us have mental health. It's just some of us we just know how to manage it better. so so
I think
yeah,
you're right. I think you're right. I mean, the challenge is though, do we want to get our hands dirty with this?
mm,
I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine, and I know he's going through stress, anxiety, and depression. I've met him on a couple of occasions, and when we do meet, he rambles and he talks and he goes around and round in circles. And I think to myself, I just want to get on with my day. Do I really need this? And I want to help, but there's another part of me that just wants to get away and just be normal. Um, I know that if I sat down with him, even for 10 hours, that it would do him maybe some marginal good, but would it get rid of his stress, anxiety, and depression? So, some of this has gone so far that they need to seek medical help. And I am no amateur I'm no psychologist. I can't tell how specifically the brain works and what
Mm,
is going on inside people's minds to be able to make a diagnosis or even to try and bring about some cure. Sometimes I
mm,
feel completely out of my depth when I meet people with stress, anxiety, and depression. They need professional help, and that's not me. And even though we can pray for them, which is one of the things that I would do, and talk to them and give them time and care for them, even though you do that, often it's beyond what we can do as normal everyday human beings
mm,
interacting with each
mm,
other. Sometimes this is serious, so serious that it needs medical intervention.
mm. Yeah. No, no. Well, I think you've answered the question I really, wanted to hear in a sense, because there are, there's some that the church can't even handle because it's
Yeah,
out of our league or out of our
yeah,
depth. So we have to bring in, signpost people to professional
yeah,
help. But I just want to switch for a moment, Rob. And if you want to come back to this, you can. But there's a question that came in, and I did say that all the easy questions will go to you, and the easier one to come to me. So it's been asked, why does men? And I think this, let's see if we all have an answer to this. Do men shut down in communication relationship, or
Mm.
the question presupposes that we do shut down. So
yeah,
the
yeah.
question is that we do shut down. So why do we shut down? So over to you, Rob. Why do you shut down?
Yeah, I'll come from a personal perspective.
Mm,
When, if I'm reading this correctly, if I'm in a certain discussion, and let's say I feel like I'm going to get emotional, is probably the word, as in like angry, and stuff like that, or I don't feel like I'm being listened to, Rob will shut down, and I shut down, and I'm very aware of it. It's deliberate to protect myself, because if I don't shut down, in the past, I would respond in a temper. I would
mm,
try and shout. I would probably try and I don't know, offend or something, as a way of getting my say or getting my way. But as Rob
mm,
has got older and a bit wiser, I've learnt some techniques, so that when I reflect, I haven't said something that would cause a deeper scar, or something that would, really, not even physical. You can say things that are worse than the physical thing. So what Rob does, I say, especially in a marital relationship, I will shut down, because I've learned how to control, you know. And there's times
mm,
when I will shut down or give warning, not just in marital, but if someone pokes the bear, guess what? The bear will roar or growl, And I've learned those techniques, because it's a defense mechanism for Rob, um, and for most, I would say generally, it is a defense mechanism. Now, it might be a question, and maybe from a negative approach, why the men shut down. But it can be both positive and negative,
mm,
because at some
mm,
point you do need to communicate whatever it is you want to discuss. But what I've learned is, when you do that, when you're raged or whatever you want to call it, it's not healthy.
that's right.
And then you
That's
got to
right.
ask yourself, what is it you're trying to put across? Now, it
Mm,
is said women are better to articulate themselves than men generally. So if you have a man who's not very good at communication anyway, why provoke them? Why continue to verbally abuse them and look for a response when you know you're not going to get nothing positive? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think if you want the best from a man to respond, give them the space, let them go to the cave and come back and respond. But trying to push for an immediate answer, you might not get the response you were looking for.
Mm,
And then
mm,
you want to
mm.
then blame the Rob, for responding in that way when Rob said, not now,
Okay.
or. you know, can we? So that's my answer in terms of Rob.
No problem. That's not. So brother Earl, why do you shut down?
Well, I think Rob started to mention it. Um, I shut down, and I would take my reference from a guy called John Gray. John Gray
Mm,
wrote the book "Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus." And
Mm,
what John Gray's book basically says is this: men and women process stress, anxiety, and depression differently.
mm,
When a woman is under stress and pressure, how does she relieve herself of that stress and pressure? What she does is she chooses to talk. And she'll talk with other women, she'll talk with whomever. She'll get on the phone, she'll talk to her mom, talk to a friend, and they'll have a long conversation and they'll literally de stress by talking through their challenges and say, "Oh, you'll never believe what happened to me at work today." Oh, and then they'll talk about what happened at work. Oh, and that happened to me. They'll affirm each other and so on. However, men are not like that. We process our stress, anxiety, depression very differently. When we've had a hard, stressful, full on day in the office, shall we say, when we come home, we process very differently. We don't want to talk. What the men do, and Rob, you alluded to this, is John Gray
mm,
says we retreat to the cave. We
mm.
retreat to the cave. Now, in the old days, what that would look like is you get the broadest newspaper you can, you sit in your favorite chair, and you put up the newspaper as a defense because this shows everybody I'm in my cave. So do
Leave me
not
alone.
disturb. Kids don't come around me. Wife don't talk to me because right now I'm in the cave. I'm processing
mm,
my thoughts. I'm reading
mm,
the paper. And your wife would probably say, "Don't disturb your father right now, because in reading the paper, he's had a hard day today. Leave it." And then when dad's had enough of the paper and he's started to let his blood levels
Mm,
return to normal, he'll come to the dining table and he'll be dad again.
mm,
But you imagine when mom comes home from work and dad come home from work,
mm.
both have had a stressful day. Dad wants to be in the cave, but mom wants to talk. This is a recipe for disaster
mm,
Conflict. Yes.
right
Yes.
there.
mm,
That's why
Mm,
most of the accidents in the home happen around 6 to 8 o'clock in the evening, because this is
mm,
just a perfect storm for violence and wrong communication. You got all
mm,
the things of kids and food and hunger and TV and I want to watch this, you want to watch that, get the kids out. There's all the roles and everything's mixed up in that state. And I must admit, when I read John Gray's book, I thought, yeah, that's me right there. So, in answer to the question, why do men shut down when it comes to communication in relationships? It's often because there's a potential stress that goes with it. When it comes to relationships as well, we're not as good as expressing ourselves about love and desire and problems and challenges because at the end of the day, we want to be alpha male. An alpha male is fit and strong and healthy, and he's able to rule and go into the jungle and or wherever and be able to bring food and feed the family. That's what
mm,
men want to be. We want to be providers. We want to be protectors. We want to be promoters. We want to be priest and prophet. We don't want to be seen as weak and feeble and having issues like mental health issues or anything like that. We want to be seen as strong. But it's a facade, to be honest, and it's something which we have to learn to take better care of. And if I'm really honest with
yeah.
you, Errol, what I'm noticing now is the roles are reversing. I'm seeing that women are going into the cave now. More
Well,
women are saying,
you
Don't
know what's
touch me,
in,
man. Leave-"
you know what's interesting. I laugh a lot about the question because it's my wife is the one who shut down. I'm the
No,
one. I'm the
yeah,
one.
yeah,
I've been with June. I've been with June for
yeah.
46 years, brother Rob.
There
I'm the
you
one.
go.
I'm the one that want to talk. My wife doesn't
mm,
want to talk. She's the one with the
mm,
newspaper.
There you
so
go. But look at
so
your
it's
look at
it's
your
it's
role though. Look at
I
your
wanna
role.
I
Your
wanna
role is
talk I
Yeah.
go downstairs. I would go
Yeah.
downstairs after this meeting,
Yeah.
and I want to talk. I want to, and all of that. She just says, can't you just go back upstairs?" It was so. It was so. It was. I get this
Without you.
every single day. Why don't you just go back
Yeah.
upstairs? Don't you have something to do? So it's
Yeah.
not. It's not all men.
Yeah.
I
But
want
look
to
at your
talk. I
role.
want
Yeah.
to express. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Your role
and,
involves talking. You are the ultimate communicator. I mean,
well, what I
that's what
said
you
to
do and you
her,
do it so well. Yeah.
yeah, what I said to her, she said to me one time, you could talk for Britain. I said, June, I get paid for talking.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. It's what you do.
So Pat God said, "Do you think men should talk and communicate more when it comes to relationship?
Yeah.
Because that will help."
Yeah.
Let me just add to
Yeah.
this one, because here is the problem, and I think Brother Earl and Brother Rob, you have articulated it properly. But I think one guy said women want men to be like them. Women want, they're trying to turn men into women. We're not going to be women. We are men, and we are wired differently to the women.
Sure.
So what the
Sure.
women need to do is to understand the man, and what the man needs to do is to understand the woman and see if they can work it together. But we're different. We're
Absolutely.
wired different. It's just the way we are. So do you think men should talk and communicate more? I would say we need to understand each other and work with each other. Men
That's
will
right.
talk
Yeah.
when he's ready. And it's interesting
Yeah.
because men do talk, but they talk when they're ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
would I would add to that, and I'm provoking now, but are the women listening? you know,
Yeah.
In fact, I was
Yeah.
gonna say
you know,
that for yeah.
because I'm generalizing, but men generally say things in a shorter way, and sometimes that's the problem. Yeah, what do you mean? But are you listening? Because a man will say something and it felt like they're not being listened to, and then they shut down, right?
Yeah.
And then you want to communicate
Yeah.
more. So I'm being provoking because I'm looking at the
Mm,
question and I am chuckling. Don't you think men should talk? I mean, it's always good to communicate, but I think talking is part of it. Body language, you gotta read the room,
mm,
and just because
Yeah.
one is emotional doesn't mean it's time to talk. Sometimes it's wise just to pause, have a bit of
Back up.
silence, come back to
Yeah.
it. So timing, so
very
yes is
key.
the answer, but there's so much to it. Timing, reading the
Mm,
Yeah.
body
It's
language,
huge.
the
It's
circumstance.
huge.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So yeah, tricky
Yeah.
one.
This is where I come back to the issue, Brother Earl, about education, because I really don't think we understand each other. I really don't think men understand women and women understand men. And I think this is where the confusion comes and the conflict takes place, because the woman wants to talk, the men doesn't want to talk yet, but they don't understand that. The woman wants to talk now because the issue is burning her. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
because he wants to
Yeah.
process it and come back to it later.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
they don't understand each other, and they're not working together, then you're gonna have this massive conflict. And then women go away saying men don't talk. Let me tell you, men do
Yeah.
talk, but they talk when they're ready. And
Can I
women
say
need to
this?
understand that. Mhm.
So can I just interrupt there because I think there's a serious impact of that in relationships. Because when a
Mm,
man or husband, let me say a husband, is not talking to his wife for that long, and then a third party comes into that relationship, and that man
Oh
happens to
dear.
give all the compliments, all the things that she's not hearing from the husband, that becomes a problem, and
mhm,
a problem on both sides. The woman will go, "Oh, I wish my husband was like this," and I'm just using this as a one example, you know. There's a danger of this communication to be used for the wrong
Yeah.
reason, and so it's
mm,
important
mm,
that husband and wife have a common moral value, that they don't resort to, I'm going to get someone to
mm,
talk to me and be nice then instead, because there's a danger
Yeah.
of that, of infidelity and everything else that comes with it. So I know we're laughing and joking and stuff.
Mm,
But husband and wife, I'm going to say, but relationships are serious, and it can't be that because we're not talking or we had an
mm,
argument. I'm going to find somebody who appears to communicate better, because
mm.
in reality, that's not the case. Yeah.
Well, it's
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 true. It's
interesting.
true.
It's interesting, Brother Earl, because I know the point here. The reason for breakdown of marriage is because there's no communication. I don't disagree with the statement, but I would add to it to say I think the biggest reason is selfishness, because what happened basically is that if I want things my way, I know
Mm,
my wife want to talk, but I want things my way, and if it's not my way, it's not
mm,
going to work.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's a scripture that says that we ought to consider the other person more important. So the
mm,
woman should
Mm,
be considering me more important, and I should be considering her more important. So if she knows I don't want to talk, she should respect that. And if I know she wants to talk, I should respect that. And we need to
yeah.
negotiate. We need to be
that's right.
able to say, well, you know what? Um, I may not want sex for the next 2 weeks, but the other person says, well, I want sex every day. Well,
Mm,
that's not the issue. The issue is, can we negotiate? Can we be, you know, can we be in a
kind of
position where we consider each other and compromise and
Yeah.
negotiate this thing? And this thing can easily work because
Mm,
once there is negotiation, once there is self-centeredness taken out of the way, and we love each other and we're going to support each other, it's not a problem to work. The issue
yeah.
I see is that there are, in my relationship, the three most important people in my relationship normally is me, myself,
mm,
and the other brother is me, myself, and I. And when you get
Yeah.
that situation in the relationship, that's where the problem is. I find,
mm,
Yeah.
what's your take
See,
on that,
you
brother,
see,
brother Earl?
yeah, great. I love where you've gone with that. I'd go one stage further in that what we often do is when we are saying we're communicating, communication seems to be let me get my point across. Let
Exactly,
me make
exactly.
so often the
mm,
conversation is very much me, myself, and I. Now,
Yeah,
mm,
healthy conversation is not about you making your points only. Healthy
mm.
conversation is where the both of you seek to understand
absolutely,
the
That's
other
right.
absolutely.
person.
That's
You
right.
make
Yeah.
Well,
understanding your goal. So you'll if
mm,
you make understand
Mm,
so darling, I really want to understand you. Oh, look, I'm
mm,
going through this, I'm going through that, I'm
mm,
going through the other.
mm,
You know, I've got a medical thing going on right now, so you know what? I can't necessarily sleep with you like I'd like to sleep with you because of
mm,
this medical issue. Now, if I hear that and I make understanding my goal, what I
mm,
would tend to do is, oh, let me understand what you're going through. And then if she
mm,
mm.
describes to me what she's going through, then the issue of how we sleep together may well be easy to understand because I understand where she's coming from. Equally, it works the other
Yeah.
way.
Good.
If I'm going through something and I'm not my usual self, it's not that I don't love her any less, but if she makes understanding a goal, then she's going to see
mm.
where I'm coming from. Half of the time, we don't listen to each other with
Absolutely,
the goal of trying to understand.
absolutely,
If we did,
Mm,
we would be in a lot more of a great situation.
absolutely, absolutely. In actual
yeah.
fact, you're
Yeah,
right, because oftentimes I've found in a relationship, and when we teach listening skills, all three of us, and
yeah,
oftentimes what I find is the other person ain't really listening to what the other person is saying. All they're
that's
doing is
right.
waiting for a gap to come in so they can make
Yes,
Yeah.
their point.
that's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea is, I want you to understand me. And you'll always hear
Yeah.
the person saying things like, you don't understand what I'm saying. You don't understand what I'm saying. But
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
took the time to try and understand her, I'd be in a much
There
Mm,
you
better
go.
position, And I
mm,
think, Sister Ellie, Sister Rochelle hits it really on the head.
Yeah, the five love languages. Yeah.
Understanding is paramount in the relationship, and hey, brother Rob, she said you hit the nail on the head. So I don't know what nail it was, but
oh,
yeah.
okay. That's good. That's
So
good.
wonderful. But
Mm,
and I think we might need to dedicate a whole session on relationship, between men and women. But I think that there are some really good YouTube videos out there about men and women. I think we played one before.
Yeah,
I can't remember the guy's name actually,
yeah,
and I
Mark
would advise.
Gergen.
Yes, what's
Mark
his name?
Gergen. Yeah.
Mark
Mark
Gerg.
Gergen.
Yeah, I think everyone
yeah.
should
Good.
listen to
That's
The
good.
two
that
Yeah.
brains.
video. It's just amazing. He's so funny as well, isn't he? He's really
Yeah.
amazingly
Brilliant.
funny.
Brilliant.
But
Yeah.
I think the title of it was called "The Tale of Two
The two
Brains."
brains. Yeah.
And I think if any of you listening out there, you're married, are you looking to get married? You need to
Fantastic.
listen to
Yeah.
this before you get married. The Tale
Mm,
of Two Brains. The man's
mm,
brain is not the same as the woman's brain.
Yeah.
They're not the
Yeah.
same. And
mm,
Yeah.
so, what tends to happen is when people say men shut down, they use it as a negative when it's not really a negative. There's a reason
mm.
behind it. Why men, don't talk as much as women do, and so on. But in my house, it's the other way around. I'm the woman, and my wife is the man.
You got the woman brain.
I've got this woman thing. I want to talk. Come on, June man. I go downstairs, and she would say, "Can't you go back upstairs? It was so peaceful when you were upstairs."
Mm,
So, anyway,
mm,
gentlemen, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes each to do your closing remarks. Winter
mm.
said it's about listening to each other. Absolutely. So let me start with Rob and then start with Errol and then go to Rob. I think we would say in a court of law here is your closing statement, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, great session again. It was so delightful to be able to be with Rob and to be able to be with you, Pastor Errol, and to be able to share with those who started to come online. We've got to try and make one of our sessions a lot more interactive so that we can actually hear the voices and get the insights from people who are online at the moment. I saw Andrew Allen was on as well. This whole subject of communication, miscommunication, understanding, the whole subject of how men and women communicate, it's a huge area, and it's going to be too big to deal in one go. But I would love to have more communications around that because it's essential to our development of healthy relationships between men and women who are not only those who are married, but to fathers and daughters, to sons and daughters, to brethren within the church and at work. It's something that we should really specialize in because communication is the lifeblood of how all relationships function. You saw it last night. If any of you were watching the Donald Trump and Kamala Harris debate, I think there was somebody who was far more prepared for that debate than the other. And for me, Kamala won hands down. She had insight, she had research, she backed it up, she wasn't disrespectful. And, when you look at debates like that, they don't happen to get a result that is successful by accident. It's well thought through. And sometimes I think we just scratch the surface with our communication. And I would love to go deeper. I have a personal mission to change the way the word is heard. And it's through deeper communication and learning good communication skills. But things like what we're doing, they start to make breakthroughs. And I'm delighted that we're at least having this conversation. And I'd love to develop an agenda where we do more of this and get further insight from our viewers and our listeners. I think that would be fantastic. But God bless you all. Have a great remainder of your week. Thank you again, Pastor Errol. And Rob,
No problem.
love you to this, mate. Let's do some more of
Yes,
this.
Well,
yes.
Rob, over to you, sir. Your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Your Honour. I'd like to close with this statement. It's been a great evening, great debate. It's gone so quick. I think my closing statement is to say communication is key. I have a passion for leadership, and communication is key to that. Does that mean Robbie's great at leadership, great at communication? No, but I've got better. I've got better, and especially in the roles that I do, not just in pastoral but work, and in particular in my marriage and family. My character is quiet and reserved, but communication is still important. But over the years, through God's grace and mercy, I've learned more about me and understanding. You've got to understand others, hear other people. So active listening is important in communication. Communication is two-way, and I often observe in conversation there is not communication other than one way. I chuckle because stuff we spoke about this evening happens in many of my conversations with different individuals in all different types of conversations, where you say something and then you observe, and you know they're not listening, and there are telltale signs. So if you find yourself saying, I hear what you're saying, but, ask yourself, do you hear what they're saying? If you say, okay, but can I say, is it okay? Just these little things. And if we can remember in the conversation, is it just about making a point, or do you really want to take away the point that's being made? That for me really helps, not just in your marriage or your relationship. It'll help you in your workplace, whatever it is. It's not about me, myself, and I, as we can see. It's about others. There's other books that I can't name authors. The most important person in the world is me. But there are ways of handling conversations, and how to influence others. I call it leadership. You might call it something else. But the more you can master learning how to active and effective listen, will it impact your relationships in all walks of life. So God bless you.
God
Looking
bless
forward
you.
to the next
Yes.
one.
Thank you both very, very much. And it's been an interesting men's talk session tonight. And I think one of the things which we have mentioned before is good for men to talk in smaller groups and hear how other men deal with things. This really is a powerful thing, and you guys are leading groups that do that, and I've done that over the years. Sometimes I get a little bit jealous, Brother Rob, Brother Earl, that you guys are riding and running and swimming and doing all these stuff, and I'm feeling sometimes I need to come to Gloucester Street and get some of that stuff going on. And you got such a very active WhatsApp group as well. I'm watching it, listening on the pings on my phone. So I'm just so glad to connect to that as well. So well done, guys. And we connect in 2 weeks' time again. And hopefully we may have somebody else to join us. I want to say welcome to George Francis and to Herman Waite from Jamaica. She's in Jamaica. No, Herman, I'm very disappointed. You're only using one Jamaican flag tonight. You're supposed to be using 3, 4 Jamaican flags, Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a wonderful week. Give my regards to the wife, the family, the children.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
and get back to your piano playing there, Brother Earl, and all of that stuff. And see you guys soon.
You.
Take care.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. God
Good
bless.
Night. Well, blessings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Pastor Errol Williams with Brother Rob Clark and Brother Earl Lynch. And we are the corporate men's ministry directors of the Church of God of Prophecy. It's such an honor and a privilege to link up with you guys tonight just to share our thoughts and our ideas and our views on the way things are affecting men. Tonight you hear a lot of things. And for me, it would be education, opportunities, understanding, listening, some of the key things that were shared tonight. And I hope that we can, take from what happened tonight and use it in our own lives and improve where we're at. That's the key, and that's the purpose of our session tonight. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been awesome tonight. And I'm looking for a video to close out on from Pastor Owen Uriah. But just before I go, just to remind you and that we do have our men's summit coming up. There's still space. And this is, in fact, this price that we're using is cheaper than a lot of the prices we've used in the past. So go to cogop.org.uk/summit and just book up and join us for that. Join us as well for our upcoming, that's right, London North Holy Convocation. Can't wait to listen to Sister Tamoy Sylvia. That's the one I want to hear throughout, and I don't even want to, not even looking forward to hearing myself or so, but of course I'm looking forward to hearing my national bishop and Bishop Paul and Sister Jean. Of course I am, Minister Jean, but Tamoy, she's 15 and she's dynamic. She's amazing. So join us there if you can as well. We look forward to seeing you guys. Tomorrow I will be at my local church on the book of Job. So if you're anywhere in Wembley, come and join us. It's amazing what we have learned so far, what I've learned so far. And I've learned it from the students, and we're all students and we're all tutors as well. So it's great to just focus on that book. You get a cup of tea, coffee if you want it. And we have a lot of, individual presentation, discussions, question and answers. And we also do a quiz as well. So I probably will do a quiz after chapter 10. So we just break it down and we had a quiz and the winner has to do something special. So there's a lot of involvement and so on. Now we have given an assignment. Assignment. And I put this assignment to you as well. The assignment is based on the word theodicy, which really means, the justice of God. So here's a question really that you would need to write to me about. Since God, not necessarily since, I use the word if here. If God is all knowing and he's all powerful and he's everywhere present at the same time, how could evil exist? Or why does evil exist? If God can stop it anytime, he loves us, why does evil exist? Why are we suffering so much? Don't forget, this is a chapter and verse session, so I need chapter and verse. But nonetheless, we're going to close out tonight with the Right Honorable, great friend of mine, Pastor Owen Uriah. Take care of yourself and each other until next time. Bye for now.
It's because of peace. Alright. I try to understand the little mysteries that I found. I try to get my feet on higher ground. The promises of thy word are written down in my heart. And now you're with me, Lord. No one will keep us apart.
Because of you,
I can show the world I love them. I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do. And when that burden lays heavy on your shoulder, and I'm being put to the test, he said, come ye who are heavy laden, come ye, and I will give you rest.
because of you,
I can show the world I love them. I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do. problems come, bringing on a storm, Jesus' tender love keeps me safe and warm. The enemy only comes to lie, to cheat and steal, but there's nothing he can do to take us from the love of you. The little mysteries that I've found, I try to get my feet on higher ground. The promises of thy word are written down in my heart, and now you're with me, Lord. No one will keep us apart.
Because of you,
I can show the world thy love there. I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears. These things I can do
because of you.
I can show the world I love
Because
them.
of you,
I can show the world I care. I can wipe away my tears.